For the flag salute, I'm not taking my hat off. You don't want to see that.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 session of the Toledo Planning Commission. Could we all rise, remove your caps if you have them? And join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All members are here, so we have a quorum. Is there any other business items that anyone who wants to add to the agenda? No. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Discussion on the business licenses, any issues there?
I didn't see any.
I did not see anything.
Second.
I'm sorry?
Lucas.
Oh, Lucas. How about on the meeting minutes? Anybody have any questions on that?
Oh,
Any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chair Birch, this under the commission reports might be a good area to open the discussion about land development moratoriums.
I think that's actually number 8, but it's unfinished business on land capacity analysis. Is that the same thing?
That was an item that I had on your agenda tonight so that I could bring back to planning commission some changes that were made to the land capacity analysis and the mapping that was done after the last time you reviewed it.
I yield the floor to you, sir.
No, this was your topic, not mine. It's under commission reports, so this is all you, but you had brought up that the concept of should we consider recommending to council that they have a moratorium.
Oh, on the moratorium.
Until we have a chance to correct some of the issues with our current zoning code.
Yeah, I see it's a double-edged sword, in that we don't want to discourage development in downtown because we seriously could use the hookups. And at the same time, we don't want to get caught with our pants down with the same situation we have with Kurt, except with somebody who doesn't quite have the compassion for the opinions of the citizenry here and tells us to pound salt. So I don't know how you think. Now is a moratorium on building something that could be waived on a case-by-case basis?
Not typically, and there are a lot of legal requirements for moratoriums, especially for land use elements that I'm not well versed in those, so I need to do some research or maybe consult with the city attorney to figure out exactly what you need. But you can tailor them specifically, so you could develop a moratorium on multifamily development specifically. So anything that has more than 2 units, just because the zoning code doesn't adequately address the public health, safety, and welfare for those. So, I mean, you can come up with a very specific moratorium that would be less impactful than just an outright development moratorium. And I would suggest that you try to tailor it as narrowly as you can that specifically addresses the issue you're trying to address that'll keep the city out of trouble.
I think you just said it, didn't you? I mean, a moratorium on multifamily housing larger than duplex without but it's something the council is going to have to take up and approve anyway.
Did you want to be specific about the geographic location at all between certain blocks or in a certain geographical area of the county?
I think we did, actually. We wanted to restrict it to our downtown core, if I'm not mistaken.
So since we're doing this under commission reports, maybe you could just give staff some guidance and I'll bring it back as an agenda item for next month. We don't have any pending land use applications for multifamily development anyplace in the.
no, we don't, as far as I'm aware.
So and it takes a few weeks for them to get complete and all that stuff and get vested, so it's not likely that somebody would get vested with an application. Unless they walk in the door tomorrow, they wouldn't likely get vested before your next planning commission meeting, so your moratorium could apply to anything going forward, even if you chose to recommend it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Take it to council soon thereafter.
What recourse would we have if someone came in to develop on land that we weren't confident with our zoning? Like what recourse would we have to pump the brakes on that?
Well, I think we did encounter this the last time, when there was a multifamily application downtown, I looked at it and that one complied with the zoning.
Right.
It was not what the community desired, but from a zoning and land use standpoint, it was entirely permissible.
Correct.
And I think that's what Chair Birch is trying to address.
Right.
yes,
Yeah,
So there's no mechanism that you have now to help the brakes.
I don't know how it would be
If they
worded,
meet
but
the requirements.
they can do it.
this is
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It would be on.
You're allowed
along
to change
that
the
grid.
requirements, but if they meet the requirements you have in place.
Right.
you
If
can't
they
change
do
it
it here,
unless they submit
we
an
want them
application.
out here.
right.
We don't want them.
Moratorium would be preemptively, right?
It is.
I just don't know how
It
to-
basically
how to
says, we
express
realize
that.
we have a problem, so we're not going to accept applications, but that's why I'm saying we should try to tailor that as narrowly as possible, and I can bring back for discussion, I put it on your next month's agenda. I don't think that's too late, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
I think we have time, and then probably notice, I think that's gonna require a public hearing, so probably have to publish a notice on that item too, if you intend on taking action, and it's council hearing, so maybe you can just make a recommendation without a hearing. Council's the one that does the acting on that.
so we'll save that for next time then.
So I'll bring it back as an agenda item for next month. And then I can work with Rachel and we can figure out some of the intricacies of moratoriums, and I'll bring back some recommendations. If that's the only instance that you're trying to prohibit, I think I can come up with some geographic boundaries and some fairly narrow criteria for the moratorium so that it's not impactful to others unintentionally.
Okay, I think a public hearing would be good too. I think that the citizens would like to see that we're looking out for their best interests. Based on the last public hearing we had.
So even if it's, but this is typically a planning commission agenda item would come from council, get delegated that way, saying we wish you would look into this, and then you'd take action on it. In this case, it's coming from us. So maybe between now and your next meeting, we should bring this up at council and make sure this is something they want, and if they do, then we could schedule a public hearing for it. There's
Well, that's council meetings next Monday, so I can certainly bring it up during planning commission report.
Yeah, there's
If I'm the one that's from planning
associated
commission
with the
that
public
chooses to
hearings.
speak.
But I agree, for something like this, you'd want as many opportunities for public comment as you could get. Council would be required to have the public hearing, you would not, because you're not the decision maker in that.
Okay, so in order, on Monday following, I will bring it up to council at council meeting. That this is what we have an idea of doing. Then we will hold another planning commission meeting and narrow the scope and the recommendation to council. Present that to council, and then council can either deny it or move forward with a public hearing on it and go from there. Does that make sense?
Sounds like a great course of action.
Okay. So do you want to move to unfinished business, which is the land capacity analysis update?
Sure. Look up to,
You can have the floor, sir.
thank you, Chair Birch. So the land capacity analysis was submitted to Lewis County. And, did you do business licenses already?
We did. They were part of our consent.
So the
agenda.
land capacity analysis, we modified the map slightly. I don't know if I did, can you pull up that sheet out of the agenda packet? It's in your packet, so the land capacity, and we're gonna use this map a little bit for our zoning discussion later as well, but this map, we had talked about using the creek as a dividing line. And when we looked at the housing balance and some of the other target numbers we needed to meet, having less commercial and more residential better met that housing to jobs balance that we need to achieve. So, we just kind of made a modification and we moved that line so that it now lines up with, I don't remember which street that was, but there's a north-south street that goes out there that's further through, so now the residential goes out further toward the junction. Street.
That probably, is that part of a donation land claim at one point in time? It actually looks like something from the West Meridian. It's the way that street comes down with the property line moving all the way south.
Which one you looking at?
It's-
Okay, gotcha.
The West one.
So the L is the new residential.
Henriette Road
Right, okay.
is the road, so that's where we move the division line between commercial and residential. So
Right.
I'm offering this for information, but there's still time to correct it if planning, because this is contrary to what we reviewed and talked about last time. But we were under a crunch and had to get the county some draft numbers, so I got them to them, but I moved the line to that Henriette Road in order to better balance some of those numbers.
East of Henriette Road would be residential. West
That's
would be,
correct.
okay. I was looking at that just today.
Yeah, west
That's
is
how I am,
commercial and
like,
the east is
Keep
residential.
working.
So how many acres does that encompass, the commercial? Our new UGA employment area is how many acres?
Our new UGA employment area.
Or commercial light industrial?
There, yeah,
Just to be like some place like here,
okay.
I think just to be that one there, there's a lot of reason.
Yeah.
Tired.
Oh, there's that.
Finish at 3.
Yeah, there's a fight like here, there's
Yeah, yeah.
there's a parking lot right here,
This late.
and there's a road right here, there's a road right here.
So-
Yeah.
We have currently. Right now, the new urban growth area. For employment lands is 197 acres. And then the residential being added into the new urban growth area is 297. 298 acres.
A lot of houses.
Yeah, well, those are gross acres. There are several deductions for infrastructure and right of way and market availability and other things, so it doesn't net out that much, which is why we need such a big area to achieve. But we are experiencing we're allocated a fairly significant population increase over the 20-year horizon. And the county did the allocation, so.
And what's strange is that, I bet we reached that in 10 or less.
It's possible. It happens in a lot of GMA planning communities. I've seen that happen more often than the surpluses, although this year. I did learn today at the county meeting that there are a number of jurisdictions that are shrinking their UGAs. So there are jurisdictions in this process that are gonna take urban growth area and take it out of their urban growth area,
Give it back to the county.
give it back to the county.
Okay.
For money, or for why, where they do that?
Exchange.
No, this is, some just feel like they have way too much urban growth area, so they just want to take it out. And then, there is one jurisdiction that has, because the county through an agreement with the cities applies city rules and regulations inside urban growth areas, which is kind of unique to Lewis County.
Okay,
There are a number of property owners that are kind of hamstrung by some city regulations because they're in the UGA and the zoning applies out there too. So they would prefer not to have city zoning apply to them when they're in a rural, non-urbanized area of the,
sounds like Lewis County to me.
yeah, so they want to be pulled out and.
Yeah.
have county rules apply. Right. So that agenda item is just bringing this to your attention for discussion and input. I mean, if you have any guidance on, yes, looks good, or no, that looks wrong, or no guidance at all is fine too. This is
Anybody
what got
else?
submitted to the county.
Anybody have an opinion?
We already discussed it.
I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Got a lot of nods, so I guess we're okay with it. Was that sufficient for you on that topic?
Yes, thank you. That was just a discussion.
I will move to the next other business, which is zoning code
Who did?
work plan and review Kelso and Winlock's commercial and industrial zoning code.
Thank you, Chair Burge. So the work plan is exactly that. I tried to break this down into logical steps that'll help to progress us through discussion of zoning and as we go through the process. So the work plan is just trying to do that. I'm looking here for you all to look at the steps. It's a 7-step program. It's all set up to help us to get to a point where we can evaluate our existing zoning, look at examples of other zonings, and then in some meaningful fashion to keep our discussions kind of focused on each point as we go through, to divide it up into different topics. We can put schedules next to these and do that once you all have approved the work plan. But the general steps are with the big numbers. So evaluating the existing zoning, creating some of the zonings, some zoning tables based on comparable pounds, and I've listed some examples in there. Identify any new zoning districts, which I think we're likely to have some, and then developing Toledo zoning tables. Have a legal and technical review outside of this group to give us any input on compliance. Then we would do the environmental impact review, which is the SEPA process. And then we would bring that all back to you all so you could make changes based on legal review and environmental comments that we receive. And then planning commission have a hearing to recommend to council, and then council hearing and adoption. I'm hoping that we can get that done over before the end of the year. So we've got about we have five more meetings left. You don't usually meet in December, right? It gets kind of close to the holidays. I don't know if you usually have in December, but so we have 4 or
We do.
5.
I think we
We do.
generally do, and
We have 4 or 5
maybe from another state,
more
but we're
meetings
in
to
there.
get through. So what that means is we try to accomplish this along with any other planning commission business through the end of this year. And that would align us pretty well with the county and keeping on track with the comp plan updates. There'll be other things that are on your agendas too, but this will be a regular item. And if this work plan looks like a fairly logical way to approach it or not, I'll take any comments or suggestions. We can modify it. We can.
Well, remind me, I believe we agreed that we still would meet at 5 o'clock on planning commission days for a workshop next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
And workshops are more open discussion, less regulated than.
well, we can discuss our crayon drawings, if nothing else.
No, Todd, I think the 7-step thing looks really good.
I think so too.
It gives us some structure and focus. I know for myself, I certainly need that.
Yeah.
So all of
According to
this-
my wife,
all
I
of this
certainly
is this
do.
big scramble, but this helps to bring some structure to
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Any other comments on that? I think we have a way forward. Sounds very good.
Okay. So the next is actually the discussion about zoning.
Yes.
And you'll notice that in the work plan here, I did pull some examples together. I don't know as a sub breakdown of this. the first step of our first discussion on zoning, which is our next agenda item tonight, is to evaluate the existing zoning that we have. We did agree in the workshop that you all are gonna take a look at the existing zoning within the city limits and provide some input for next meeting, so we'll use that to build on. And we also in the workshop, really started our discussion about new zoning needs and some of the zoning criteria that we have. This zoning table here, I've got the Toledo existing that shows what we have. But then I also have some of the comparable towns, and these are comparable towns, not just geographically, but also in comparable in size.
Right.
And some other demographics. I think I've got Kelso in here, and that's a little bit larger. But also, I don't know, Bale is about the same size, is that?
One thing I did like about the Kelso plan though was their way of introduction and explanation of their various zoning codes. Chapter 17.18, where they give the introduction. I think it was in your packets. And it goes through each one of their zones and gives you an explanation of what its intent is. I would like to see us adopt that, so when people coming into town will have a good idea what the zoning means in the various locations, because I certainly didn't when I came to town. But aside from that, Kalama's got a pretty good handle on their zoning. I don't know that we need to go to the, or maybe we do, this table that they put in here, 1718.040, which listed all kinds of things and where they would fall into the zoning structure. It's in their Kelso's municipal code, which they passed in January of this year.
Yeah, and they are actually updating their code again.
Again,
But a lot of this stuff will stay the same, the zoning and uses, they're updating other portions, but. So you like the table
I do.
that's in there and the preamble that describes the. We can definitely use that same format for our codes.
And then they also have the disclaimers on the footnotes at the end, which regards to garage sales and kennels and.
So those are additional criteria for specific use.
Right, and
So
it
within
just seemed
those-
very well put together.
Like that, okay,
I did,
and that was the also.
Kelso.
Okay. And looking at some of these other jurisdictions, when we look at, Whale and also look at Kalama and look at Napavine, those. I pulled the summary tables out of it, basically just list
Right.
the zones that they have with some of the criteria.
Right,
And what I'm trying to get at by pulling those forward into this discussion is I'm trying to figure out, you know, are we all talked about bringing this back for more with a little bit more detail, but we're centered around that, you know, do we feel like we need multiple residential zones and others? And that's what this table aims to do. I'm showing you what comparable jurisdictions have
right,
and the number of zones that they have and the types of. I didn't bring all the uses, but the zoning code that I brought does show Kelso's pretty well, and it's good to know you like that. But what I'm trying to get at here is for residential uses and commercial uses. How deep of a dive is appropriate for Toledo? Do we need 7 residential zones, or do we need 3 residential zones, or is 2 enough? You know, keeping in mind that the uses are probably going to include the varieties of housing types that I showed you to meet the different income levels. And that those would have to be, you know, there's also the social equity concept that you can't just put all those zones together lumped in one
Right.
place. But for you, you need such a little amount of each of those income levels within your jurisdiction. It's just practical to put it all in one place because you wouldn't want to build 2 units.
well, it seems like we're gonna need at least 3 to cover the low density, high density and affordable housing components that are required.
So 3 residential zones.
Well, that's what I'm
So Like a
thinking.
low, a medium and a high type density. Low would be single family detached residential, with ADUs, because they're allowed in
Right.
zones now. The medium might be like townhomes and duplexes type development with, 4 to 6 units maximum in a building, and then high density would be multifamily, which would be apartments and.
Right, where would you put the affordable housing element in that?
So the affordable housing elements are likely going to be in the allowed uses within the zones,
Okay,
where you're allowing for night by night shelters and those sorts of things. So those could be in your commercial zones or in your highest density residential zones. If you think about where you're going to help to house the people that are transitioning from homelessness into housing, those are usually government subsidized apartment buildings and other things that. So those are that's the 0 to 30%
Right.
average median income. And then the 30 to 50 is the lower income housing, but a lot of times that's subsidized housing. And then the others are just apartments, multifamily.
and the three types of commercials seem reasonable. Commercial, retail, highway, commercial, and industrial.
Are you looking at the Kalama?
I am looking at Kalama.
Yeah, and I did not in this summary table include the mixed use zone. that we
Mixed use
talked about
zone,
earlier.
right.
But I think that for you all, certainly a concept of mixed use, especially in your downtown core, where you want to try to encourage the mix of residential and commercial. You already have some examples that exist down here naturally. But I think some sort of a mix of use that allows commercial uses to mix with residential uses is probably a good one. So if we have 3 residential zones, a commercial and industrial, and then a mixed use zone. Does that kind of sound appropriate based on the examples that we?
Pretty
Well,
I
balanced.
think that covers everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And as we get into the process, if we find that doesn't fit, we can always add a zone later, but I just need some framework to start. I'll need to start drafting some zoning concepts and borrowing from other jurisdictions. So,
Yeah, I think it covers all the bases. It leaves the options open for anybody that would want to go in there, so I think that's good.
Okay, now I believe at last meeting you indicated that perhaps you might come back with a palette of zoning. That's what we're talking about now,
that's
so,
what this is from similar jurisdictions.
okay,
And that helps us to get through the first couple of steps of our work plan.
right,
So now we're on to number 3, which would be identify new zoning districts, which I think is gonna be best saved for the next meeting because you all have your homework
Coloring.
from the workshop.
Coloring.
See how all this kind of
Take it home.
bring out the colored pencils now.
Yep.
So, but now you know when you're coloring pencils that you're gonna need 5 pencils, six pencils.
6 pencils,
Cause you'll need 3 different residentials. You'll need a mixed use commercial residential, then you'll
And
need
your
an
primary colors.
industrial. And a commercial zone. So you need 6 pencils when you do. Pencils not provided.
all right, does anybody have anything else?
And we're going over the downtown, everything on this map, or are we going through just the UGA, the new UGA,
Well, I think that
everything?
the chunks that you guys decide, it is everything.
Yeah.
But the chunk that you all wanted to look at first was the downtown
Right.
inside the city limits, which is the maps that we passed out. If you'd like, I can email out copies of the map that includes the UGA as a separate map,
No, it's
the
okay.
existing and proposed. But we will need to paint those. with
Eventually.
colors too. But only if we choose to go, so the county is responsible for zoning outside of our city limits. But they allow us the option of planning with that, and that's a whole separate process. That's the interlocal agreement that we may or may not enter into with the county. If we don't enter into that with the county, they'll apply county zoning outside of there, so we just have to use comp plan designations for what we have now would suffice.
Okay,
Hopefully by the time we come back around to our next planning commission meeting and talk about this, I'll know more certainty whether or not the city's likely to.
more of an
move forward
ILA.
with The ILA.
Okay, well, with that. Public comment? Yes, sir.
I'm just here, and so it's told by the office, I call, when I want to get information on the annexation. What's going on? I'm Carl Saltpeter, I came to Toledo in junior high in 1960. And I came back in 74 with my Toledo Veterinary Clinic. And now I have an attorney office in Longview. And I still own that Toledo Veterinary Clinic property.
Hmm.
That you may not know was Toledo Veterinary Clinic, but I had the whole hill that I bought in 74, including the church, and that behind those trees, there's a double wide mobile plus some garage, et cetera, in front of Buswell's place there. And actually, I used to own Buswell's place too, but anyway, so I've got 4.5 acres there. My understanding is that we are not annexed at this moment, because I was given a petition a while ago, and I did not sign to agree, and so I'm trying to find out what stage we're in.
Well, the annexation, as I understand it, was 100% applicants who desired to be annexed. So if that application was not something you submitted,
I did not.
then you are not, I don't believe, subject. We've got a annexation map over here. Or a zoning map which shows the annexation areas.
Chair Birch, there was one exception. Remember that small out parcel that we included?
Oh, there was,
So there is one.
but that's
parcel-
not the one he's speaking
Okay.
of, so.
I just wanted to be clear, there was one parcel that we did not have.
The surveyor, who I just had mine surveyed, told me that he thought I was included.
Well, I don't believe that's true. Eric, are you in a position?
Yeah, can you?
You want to show me where your lot is? Get somebody here.
587 Little Raider Road.
Like,
Where you at? Where's the old tax side?
So, up there, so that way, yeah.
This is going to where this place.
That's
Montadon, that's Montadon, and there's the old.
No, but it's coming into town, where's it? It's coming into town. Okay, so then I'm on the highway and I am behind the church, where's the church?
Baptist church?
You're next to 8 or Buswell?
So this, Ayers place.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is a place.
Mine's in front of me.
I can do.
Yeah, I know where you're at.
Does this guy even have a place?
So, yeah, pardon me?
I have the annexation map here, if it helps.
Oh, that's where Kara Buswell's place is at, right?
Kara's got Ayers place,
And she's not part of the annexation either.
not yet, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, she's not.
I mean, I talked to her this week, and she didn't know about it, and I'm east of her, right in front of her. My property surrounds her house, three sides.
Right, and you are not part of that annexation.
And it's
Yeah,
not
I
part of
think
it.
that's it.
The annexation is not done,
Just outside.
and I'm not part of the,
Well, the annexation process itself is very, very much along the way, but it does not include your properties.
okay,
Okay, it includes those who applicants who actually petitioned to be annexed.
okay,
And Kara's was not one of the properties that was petitioned, neither was yours, so you are not part of that annexation. And until such time as either the city council or the residents there petition to become part of the city, I don't believe there's going to be any further action. And I assume that's what you want to have happen, but
well, I'm starting to be a little on the fence, because I'm up there fussing with evicting a live-in guy that lived in on his own,
Yep.
came in and broke in and lived there.
right,
I don't know, the guy got verdict, I just found the stuff. But it's in the yard, and Karen told me that the police won't go up there, because it's not annexed,
it's not part of our city.
and you don't have any revoke, whatever, coordinated effort with the sheriff. That you work with them and they work with you, so you help each other, you don't have that either.
Well, actually, we do.
Yeah.
Actually, we do.
Yeah,
Well, then the police ought to go up there.
You have to call Lewis County Sheriffs and they should come out. Lewis County Sheriff's Department will come out.
Because you gotta work with each other relationship,
Right.
then the one who's closest kind of helps out if the sheriff can't come.
Yeah, the sheriff should make it out there though.
Our chief of police and his officer are both in connection with Lewis County at all
Correct.
times.
Great.
So if Lewis County had an incident that required
So-
quick response and the chief was the closest one there,
Yeah.
they would call the chief and have him go up there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I was worried about my safety.
Right,
I found it
Betty's
on
place is right
Friday,
here in the corner.
right.
so I boarded up all the windows, and I come back Saturday, and that, whatever adjective you wanna call the person, busted it
That is
again,
yeah, my shoulder.
because I rehabbed that place
anything.
December,
We didn't get a-
$40,000+ from a crumb bum, a tenant I had before. And I was thinking about selling it, and so I rehabbed it, and this turkey jumped in there. And so I kicked him out and he broke in again, so Saturday I came back and put boards on the inside of the window. I got tired of him breaking the plywood off the outside of the window. So I'm gonna check tonight to see if I got him the third time or not. And so, you know, that's not planning, I get it. But at least to answer your question, I was wondering if I had to get headaches to get police or
No.
what, you know, I mean, this is kind of
Yeah.
the world we live in, let's be real about it.
I will tell people, they know, what.
No, sir.
You can break in the house.
And
The sheriff,
annexation
I think I
does
know
not
one.
include that.
that's correct.
The annexation is done or it's still in the process?
Still in process.
So if I decided to wanna be in, would that be
No,
a crisis?
No, you-
No, you,
It's all about that.
You'd have to submit a new application.
Well, I never submitted one. Somebody
Yeah.
else submitted one and they wanted me to sign on.
So that one's too far along for you to join up with.
Fine, fine. Yeah, but I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably all I needed to know then.
all right, sir.
So I was kind of told.
I bet everybody'd like to talk to you now that you've lived here that long, though. Where in the heck was Teapot gas station?
Where was the Teapot gas station?
Yes,
Yeah, I think it was down here. in
was that at
South
the island
Yeah,
at Jackson Highway?
Yeah,
Okay.
that is in Gads Highway.
yeah.
My mother, for any of you that care or know people.
I'm a history buff, so
My
I,
mother was the head cook for the school district for about 20-some years,
wow.
and she died April 26th at 103. And she was.
Well, then you're just a spring chicken.
Anyway, there'll be a gravesite on June 12th. And I'll get the obit published pretty quickly, but she, my family, my parents were Cheese Day folks.
Uh-huh.
Chair of the parade or whatever, the honorary something or other.
Big cheese.
Big cheese, thank you. My dad's been dead for 20 years, but my mother just died, so. Anyway, I appreciate your time and I just needed the information and so we'll go from there. I'm not saying I'm strong one side or the other, but it came to light when you start getting people moving in on your, you know.
All right, well, it was very good. Happy to have you, sir.
Thank you very much.
What was your last name again?
Saul Cedar,
Saul Cedar, okay.
yeah, Inez and Wilford were the head cheeses and all those.
Yeah, okay.
Gary Springer was principal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, good.
Murdoch was superintendent.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
went to
right.
school with Murdoch's daughter.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
her brother was a little bit ahead of her and,
Mhm.
yeah. we
Well,
went
what
to-
year was that in high school?
I graduated in 64,
That-
50 years.
See, what's strange though is I
60 years.
go over to the truck stop and Gail
Yeah.
Wallace, I've got his yearbook when he was graduating in about 1954.
he says it.
Yeah, no, 64, 60 years. We're having our reunion at the Grange coming up in June.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I'm sorry it takes so much time, but I appreciate your help very much.
I'm sorry, I'm delighted to talk to you.
Thank you.
Anyway, can I take a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second it? All in favor, say aye. Motion adjourned.
You know, going.
What a bit of.
Because I used to.
Yeah.
I with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the gas station.